Everything begins with a woman who nostalgically remembers her childhood. Her name is Ae-soon, and she had a very hard life. Her mother was very poor, and her father had passed away a long time ago. So her mother had to work hard to feed all her children. She fought to prevent her eldest daughter from going through the same situation. However, she died at the young age of 25. So Ae-soon, although she wanted to keep studying to become a great poet, had to help her stepfather work to support her siblings, with the promise that when she grew older, he would pay for her education. During that time, a sweet boy named Yang Guan always helped her sell her cabbages and brought her food whenever he could, hoping that one day she would return his affection. He came from one of the best families in Jeju, so his family didn't like that he was involved with such a poor girl. Time passes, and her stepfather marries a new woman, who doesn't want the girl living with them. That's when she finds out that all her stepfather's promises were lies. He wouldn't pay for her education. Instead, he wanted her to go to Seoul to work in a factory and send them money, which she refused to do. Later, she escapes with Yang Guan, taking things from her stepfather's wife and the boy's grandmother, and they head to Seoul on a boat. When they arrive, they go to a hotel where the owner, after offering them several things for free, including alcohol, waits for them to fall asleep so she can steal all their belongings. But the kids are not naive. They wait for the owner to fall asleep and recover their things. Later, they're caught by the police. Since they don't have IDs, the officers call Yang Guan's mother, who picks them up and takes them back to Jeju. There, the woman convinces the protagonist not to marry her son, as they want him to become a professional runner. So, with all the pain in her heart, she tells him she'll never marry him. Time goes on, and Ae-soon receives a marriage proposal from someone much older with 2 children, but who has enough money to send her to university and live in Seoul. Even though she doesn't love him, it would be the life she always dreamed of. Meanwhile, Yang Guan is on a boat headed to an athletic competition, but he's heartbroken. She rethinks everything and decides that nothing is worth it without love. She runs to the dock, but the ship has already left. What she didn't expect was for the boy to jump off the boat and swim back to shore. They got married, and a few months later, had a beautiful baby girl. Since the girl was the first granddaughter, her grandmother wanted her to start training to become a haenyeo, which is what women who dive to collect seaweed and oysters are called. Ae-soon didn't want that, as her own mother had died because of this lifestyle. Spending so much time underwater had ruined her lungs, so her husband decided to leave the house with his wife and daughter. Yang Guan always worked hard to provide for his family. He even worked for the man Ae-soon was supposed to marry, enduring his abuse out of jealousy. But when she found out, she intervened for his sake, and he had to quit. With no job and Ae-soon pregnant, they had no choice but to ask her grandmother for money. But the old woman gave it to them as a gift, because long ago, Ae-soon's mother had asked her to look after her daughter when she was gone. With that money, they bought a fishing boat, and soon went from renting a small room to living in the house that once belonged to Ae-soon's mother. Time passed, and the family lived peacefully, until a powerful typhoon hit the island. Their eldest daughter, Yang Gum-myung, went out riding her bike. When Ae-soon noticed, she ran after her, leaving the 2 younger children at home. But when she returned, they were gone. They searched for hours and found only Yang Eun-myung. Later, they found the boy drowned. They tried to move on for the sake of their other 2 children. With the support of the whole island, even the stepmother brought food and helped feed the kids. Years later, Gum-myung was accepted into a university in Seoul. Over time, Ae-soon became the head of the island, something she had dreamed of since she was a girl. She celebrated in honor of this achievement. In a scene change, we see Gum-myung tutoring a girl in English. The girl's mother tries to persuade Gum-myung to take her daughter's entrance exam in her place because they look alike. That's why she was hired. But Gum-myung refuses, as that's not how she was raised. She takes her pay and leaves. Then she is stopped by a police officer who accuses her of stealing money and a diamond ring. She returns the money but never took the ring. They take her to the police station, but they find nothing on her. They suspect she hid the ring somewhere else. Meanwhile, the woman confesses at home that she had to lie because she was afraid Gum-myung would reveal she had offered money to cheat on the exam. The maid overhears this, sneaks into her room, takes the ring, and threatens to throw it away if the woman calls the police to admit her lie. So, the woman has no choice but to apologize. Meanwhile, Myung's father waits near her university. He had been rewarded with a free trip to Seoul for saving a woman from drowning, and used the opportunity to see his daughter. That night, she arrives and finds him sitting. She asks how long he's been there, but he says nothing and takes her to a restaurant. There, he finds out she was offered a scholarship to study in Japan, but declined because she couldn't afford the extra expenses. In another scene, Ae-soon has bought a restaurant, the same one where she once had a date with the man she almost married, but her joy doesn't last long. She finds out a teacher at her daughter's university wants to take out a loan to help her go to Japan. Ae-soon gets jealous and frustrated for not being the one to support her, especially now that her daughter lost her scholarship. So, without hesitation, she sells her house to help her. After some time, the girl lived in a small apartment in a somewhat dangerous neighborhood, where the landlord was quite kind to her. Meanwhile, Ae-soon thinks her son is hanging out with a friend who is a bad influence. Still, she tries to handle it gently, bringing him games and apples. But his father doesn't think the same and bursts into the room. That's when they realize it's not his friend. It's Boo Yeon-suk, the daughter of the man Ae-soon was supposed to marry. And now she is dating their son. That night, Myung goes to the university bulletin board looking for a job, so she won't have to ask her parents for money. There, she runs into the ex-boyfriend of her landlord's daughter, Park Chung-seop, who helps her get a job at a movie theater. The next night, already working, she starts selling tickets when suddenly her boyfriend shows up. His name is Young Beom, a soldier who returned early from his military service just to see her. After her shift, they go straight to her home, but when he sees how run down the neighborhood is, he asks her to move into his, which upsets her. She knows she doesn't have enough money. The next night, the whole cinema staff goes out for dinner, and since Park Chung-seop is there, she's sent to take something to the basement where he stays. At that moment, his ex-girlfriend arrives and yells at him for being poor and not being able to afford a nicer restaurant. Just then, the phone rings, and as he goes to answer it, he sees Myung hiding and thinks she is his new girlfriend. In another scene, it's Yongbyom's birthday, so Myung goes to his house to visit. What she doesn't expect is to find his mother, who gets upset because the girl doesn't know how to serve food and even has a copy of the house key. The only one happy was the boy, but the woman forbids her from returning. So Myung storms out. That night she returns to work and notices a woman talking to customers. The owners suspect she is scalping tickets since she always shows up at premieres. But that's not the case. She's Chung Seop's mother, and she's an artist. She comes to see the paintings displayed during the premieres. Because of this, her boss gives her free movie tickets, saying that without her son, the cinema would have gone under long ago. Since Myung is the one who noticed the truth, her friend is very grateful. He even says his mother had never seen a movie in a theater before. As a thank you, the woman gives Myung many English literature books, the subject she's studying. When she gets home, her mother calls her right away. She's had many nightmares and asks her daughter to never come home so late again, since apparently Myung never told her she had a job. That night, Ae-soon visits her grandmother's house to honor the anniversary of her father's death. While listening to the radio, they hear news of a child kidnapping. This triggers a memory in her uncle. Once, when Ae-soon went to gather firewood with her sister, she chased a dragonfly and met a woman who claimed she had an injured leg. The woman asked Ae-soon to go to a nearby village store to get change. Ae-soon did, and when she came back, the woman gave her more money to get more change. Just as Ae-soon was nearing a truck, her mother found her, took the money, thinking it was cursed, and asked her to describe the woman. Turns out the woman was a child kidnapper, but her mother never told her to avoid scaring her. A few days later, the same woman went to the market, and Ae-soon's mother beat her up. Back then, it seemed like a coincidence, but now, as a mother, Ae-soon understands that instinct can tell when something's wrong. That's exactly why Ae-soon decides to visit her daughter. She senses something's off. When she arrives, she finds her daughter unconscious and breaks down the landlord's door to ask for help. The girl had inhaled carbon monoxide. Although she calls an ambulance, she knows it'll take time since cars can't access the area. Fortunately, Chung-seop is there and carries her daughter to the paramedics quickly. At the hospital, her daughter is treated. She's in pain but conscious. Then Young Beom arrives, extremely worried. Through tears, he asks her to marry him. She's still unsure because she knows his mother dislikes her. Ae-soon overhears everything and wonders how anyone could dislike her daughter. Later, the girl accepts his proposal, and her parents travel to meet Youngbyom's family. Not only do they arrive late, but his mother also insults Gumyong. Ae-soon bites her tongue to avoid saying something inappropriate, but it's hard. When they go to choose wedding dresses, the old woman refuses to let Ae-soon choose a pink one, claiming it makes her look younger than the bride's mother. Eventually, Ae-soon decides to talk to her alone. The woman takes the opportunity to say her son shouldn't marry someone so poor and asks Ae-soon to help stop the wedding. Ae-soon walks away, but not before telling her she'll only end up hurting her own son. Later, the old woman confronts the girl after finding out Youngbyom plans to live alone with her. Jumyong then realizes what she said to her mother and breaks off the engagement. She can't tolerate anyone making her mom feel small. In time, she decides to stop seeing Youngbyom altogether. They know they'll only keep hurting each other, knowing they can never truly be together. They hug one last time. A year goes by, and she's still heartbroken. She goes to her parents' house for a while. We learn she now works at a company and is doing well, but she took time off to heal. Her parents are happy to have her around. They cook all her favorite dishes and try to keep her from thinking too much about her ex. One early morning, her father wakes her up to go out on the boat and watch the sunrise. That's the moment when she finally begins to heal. When she returns home, she feels better. Later, we learn that her brother is serving in the military. He made that decision to get away from his girlfriend's brothers, who used to beat him up, and also to make his family proud. But time flies, and soon enough he's back. His parents are overjoyed, but he brings a surprise. He got his girlfriend pregnant. Since she wasn't treated well at her home, he took her in to live with his parents. The crisis hit, and many companies went bankrupt. That's why it became very difficult to keep a job for long. Even the movie theater where she had worked eventually went under. However, the same people continued running it. One day, Gumyong decided to go to the theater, and by chance, she ran into Chung Seop. Neither of them noticed the other until she was already on the bus. So, she ran after it until she managed to get on. He invited her to eat and confessed that he had always liked her. And soon after, they started a beautiful relationship. One day, they traveled to Jeju to meet her parents and get their blessing. But it wasn't as easy as they thought. Her father pretended to feel dizzy while fishing on the boat, although he liked how much Chung Seop cared for her. In time, they got married in a lovely ceremony attended by family and friends, including the elderly couple who were once her parents' landlords. But after the wedding, everything came crashing down. Yoon Myung ended up in jail. The friend his parents had always forbidden him from seeing accused him of theft. Apparently, they had opened a pawn shop, hoping to get rich and gain the attention of their parents. Since childhood, Yoon Myung had felt overlooked by his parents and believed his sister was always their priority. To get him released, they needed to raise a large sum of money. Ae-soon went to the friend's mother's house to try and get her to tell her son's whereabouts. A fight broke out, and Ae-soon ended up with a TV and a gold ring to sell, but it still wasn't enough. So Yang Gwan had no choice but to sell his fishing boat. When Eun Myung was finally released, he looked for work, but because people saw him as an ex-convict, no one would hire him. He managed to sell rice cakes and jellies, though he didn't enjoy it. Every time someone bought from him, they'd tell him to be kind to his father, as if everyone was scolding him. And thanks to his father, he eventually landed a better job, where he still got scolded, but at least the pay was good. In a change of scene, we see that now Gum Myung is the one deciding to sell something. This worries her family. To make matters worse, Eun Myung has injured his fingers since he works carrying ice and doesn't wear protective gloves. Because of all this, Yang Gwan makes a bold decision. He sells the cabbage field to buy a building and turn it into a restaurant. The only issue is that the building was far from their village, so it was hard to attract customers. Later, they find out the cabbage field will be turned into a hotel, something they didn't know beforehand. When they made the deal, they were told it would become a hospital with a golf course. This upset their children deeply. After an argument with her mother, Gyum Myung leaves and places a sonogram photo of the baby she's expecting in the refrigerator. Months pass, and Gyum Myung is now in labor, but it's a complicated delivery, as the baby isn't moving despite the dilation. Despite all the problems, she manages to give birth. Her parents arrive, as always, to feed her and take care of her. When Ae-soon returns home, they come up with an idea. Since they believe no one will visit their restaurant, they decide to start making home deliveries. It turns out to be a great idea, as orders start flooding in. Then we find out her husband has a new dream, to be a rich grandfather. So, he calls in a favor from the woman he saved long ago, now a very famous person. She stars in a commercial recommending their food. Over time, everything gets better. The restaurant is thriving, the rest of the building's units are rented, and they're earning more money. But life isn't always happy. Yang Guan is diagnosed with cancer, and even with treatment, his survival isn't guaranteed. Everyone is devastated. At least he had the chance to say goodbye to his wife and children. He lived long enough to see Ae-soon finally become the poet she always wanted to be. He asked his daughter to stop fighting with her mother and to take care of her when he's gone. It didn't take long before the man with a heart of steel left this world. Life moved on. In the present, Ae-soon works as a teacher at a nursing home, teaching those who never learned to read and write. She now lives in a house her daughter bought for her. Ae-soon lived a very hard life, but she never gave up. Over time, she achieved what she wanted and learned to be happy with what little she had.